Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are
Above Replacement Radio.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Giant. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, it has been a very important and reflective week for the game of baseball. A lot of fun things have happened. A lot of very important and very moving things have happened. For one, on, I believe was it Monday or Tuesday night? I think it was Tuesday night. The baseball world received the news that Willie Mays, a Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greatest players ever. You could make the case the greatest player ever, a guy that we touched on during our history series many years ago, died at the age of 93. This news came just 2 days before MLB was set to play a game at Rickwood Field, a field where Willie Mays grew up nearby, played his first professional games as a Negro Leaguer, and it was a very important week to understand, again, his legacy, because, I mean, not that anyone really didn't know his legacy beforehand, but I think any chance you get to kind of reinforce that, you absolutely take. 93 years old, he was the oldest living Hall of Famer at the time of his passing. Very, very good run, which is very in character for Willie Mays.
Yeah, especially for a guy who excelled into his 40s in his playing career.
Mhm.
It definitely is definitely a reflection of that. And yeah, it's I think as we mentioned off air, like he's someone where his legacy is not really ever argued about. It's just kind of plain and candid, whether you're looking at it sabermetrically or, just completely on the surface, with traditional count stats. It is all there with Willie Mays' career. And that's kind of what you have to remember when you're talking about Willie Mays. He 12-time Gold Glover, and the Gold Glove wasn't even a thing his entire career. 660 home runs. I think first member of the 300 club. Possibly.
I would have to imagine he was.
Yeah, I believe so. And now there's 8 members, but yeah, and 2 MVPs, probably should have won a whole lot more.
Way more. Way more.
But World Series champion. He checked off all the boxes. Career OPS plus over 150. He was an elite player, and had nothing off the field that could kind of interfere with that as well.
No, not at all. I mean, something that people have been saying this week is that Willie Mays is a guy where you could make the case that he is the GOAT of baseball, the greatest of all time. There's a lot of discourse in sports like basketball with MJ and MJ and LeBron, in football with various quarterbacks from different eras primarily. Baseball, it's kind of a case of I think a lot of it is intertwined with the steroids debate, right? Because I mean, Barry Bonds is, I think, for a lot of people, that person, given the era of which he played in, the pitching that he faced compared to someone like Babe Ruth, who played it's very long ago. But Willie Mays has maybe the most indestructible case, other than just simply thinking that someone else was better. Because I mean, he was definition, or at least the definition that we really saw of a 5-tool player. I mean, there was really not an aspect of baseball within the 5 tools that he didn't excel at. I know that defensive metrics are not exactly up to par we're not up to par during his playing time, but I mean, the eye test is, I mean, really, all you have to look at is one play to understand who he was at defense. And I mean, anyone who knows anything about Willie Mays knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? Game 1 of the 1954 World Series, the catch at Polo Grounds, about 440 feet away from home plate, maybe. And then the throw back in as well, which is also something that a lot of people emphasize. Nothing he didn't excel in.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we talked about like that case there is, obviously had over 150 wins above replacement in, an integrated league Babe Ruth not in an integrated league. And then, Barry Bonds has more WAR than him, but imagine if you were able to give like Willie Mays some HGH in his late 30s. I'm sure he would have had, I'm sure he would have been able to, get a little bit more production in later in his career. So yeah, I think there is definitely a case there. And I think, I guess now is a good time to sort of recognize that. But yeah, yeah, nothing really you can poke holes into. And he was, I think, one of the people that shone the light on, African Americans in baseball. He was probably, he he there had not, he obviously, since he played in the Negro Leagues, there were not a lot of black baseball players in the MLB before him. Obviously people remember Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby, but there weren't a whole lot before Willie Mays. He comes in 1951, and after serving time in Korea, he just immediately makes an impact, wins an MVP in 1954, and just continues dominating year after year. And was one of the faces of baseball in the 1950s, one of the faces of New York baseball in the 1950s, which was big before the Giants and Dodgers moved to the West. So yeah, I mean his legacy goes beyond his numbers, just based on the era he was in and what he meant to the game of baseball when he was in it. So yeah, yeah, and just an excellent resume, and surely will be missed.
Yeah, I mean, going back into the, advocacy for Black baseball players stuff, he had, I think, a very unique way about going through that, or how to do it. I don't think there's a particularly right or wrong way to have advocated for Black players as a Black player during that time. From what I had researched in the last few days, it never really seemed like Willie Mays was super outspoken about it, at least during his playing career. Not that he, wasn't an advocate, he absolutely was. And, I think a lot of his way of doing it was just by doing his thing on the field, because Willie Mays, made it continuously undeniable throughout his playing career that anything that anyone wanted to say about Black players belonging just did not hold any sort of substance, because Willie Mays was a guy that everyone wanted to watch play, right? I mean, everyone was flocking to the Polo Grounds during a time where New York City was really the epicenter of baseball, where the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Giants were all there. Of course, Willie, Mickey, and the Duke, the song that existed back then. Um, he was, I think, a big proponent in his communities, right? There's so much about him, like playing with local kids in the neighborhood, playing stickball with them in the street. People would go knock on his door and he'd just come out and start playing with them, which is something that, like, the only person I ever really remember hearing stories about that, like, is also Roberto Clemente. Like, right? Because we did the history series and there was stuff about that with Clemente, I believe. Him and Mays are the only ones where I really remember hearing about someone doing something like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, the way that he went about his life just made it so much more undeniable that, Black players belonged in baseball, in Major League Baseball. Whether it be just the way that he was performing, or the way that he looked on the field, or the way that he, behaved around everyone. Uh, but he made it clear that they belonged, because you couldn't have Willie Mays not in the game.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, he was probably the player of the 1960s. Just looking statistically, I think he was the leader in wins above replacement in the decade. Just double checking here, because yeah, I'm pretty sure either that, or it was either that or the 1950s. Yeah, 1960s he led in war. Um, yeah, so, and he was also accompanied by uh a lot more African American players like Hank Aaron and Roberto Clemente, as you just mentioned, as well as Frank Robinson. Those are actually the top four. So yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, they they obviously made it clear, how much they belonged and how they had belonged for quite some time. So yeah, it's he definitely holds an important place in baseball history for sure.
I can't believe, and I mean, I understand what it was, but in 1979, only 409 out of 432 voters decided to put him in the Hall of Fame. In 19, so much, we'll get to the Rickwood Field game and I'll get to the comments that Reggie Jackson made, but like 1979, that's not long ago,
Yeah.
right? Like when you think of like because I mean, let's be honest here. Like I think we know why people decided not to put Willie Mays in the Hall of Fame or why people didn't vote for him. I don't think anyone was looking at his playing career and being like, I don't know about that one,
Yeah,
right?
it makes me curious, like what the all-time greats were topping out at that point. Because I know, like, just
Yeah,
generally speaking, for everyone, they did kind of have sticks up their butts about unanimity,
for sure, for sure. But
but
still, I
still, it
mean,
does. There
there's
had to have been at least a few that held that against him.
yes, I would imagine most. Yeah, I know people are very weird about unanimity, but and yeah, Willie Mays was definitely a subject to that as well as probably other things. But yeah, 1979, and I'm trying to do the math. What is it, like 23 writers or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's insane.
right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to look at where that compares to other votes of that day. Because I know for a while, like Seaver had the record, and maybe
Seaver had the
George.
record. He was a little later.
Yeah, he was a little later. Um, obviously, obviously Ruth had a high rate when he did have
Yeah.
it, but he had way less writers voting for him.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, actually, yeah, I guess yeah, Henry Aaron had 97.8% in 1982, and there's not really any reason to say
Yeah. I
outside of
guess the
home
home
runs
run title, yeah,
that
that
Henry
is
Aaron was
awfully
more deserving.
yeah, that is awfully strange because only
Yeah.
3 years later.
Yeah, it's only 3 years later. So, yeah, who knows? Yeah, so anything more before we dive into the Rickwood Field game?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can kind of just transition straight into it, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
Rickwood Field game was, and Rob Manfred said this in his statement, but it was designed to be an event to honor people like Willie Mays. He played for the Birmingham Black Barons who played at Rickwood Field throughout the Negro Leagues. He was, a native of Westfield, Alabama, which was not that far. Um, and Willie was unfortunately not going to be able to make it anyway. Which I mean, understandably, being 93 and asked to go from, I believe, I'm sure San Francisco to Alabama, I would imagine is a very difficult task, regardless of whatever health condition he was in. Um, but it was very cool to, get people together to honor him, whether he was, with us or not. It was cool seeing the people that they brought out, whether it be, the more guys that we're more familiar with, like Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., Derek Jeter, or, other Negro Leaguers that they brought in. I mean, I think a lot of baseball fans learned about Bill Greason this week, which I wish, I mean, I'll admit that I learned about him this week, and I wish there was much more of a platform on him sooner because what a life.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And he's lived a very long life, led a very long life. Um, yeah, I mean, it definitely seemed like um just a very fun event, like a more impactful version of that of the Iowa game. I know Iowa was
Yeah.
based on a movie. This was
Based
based
on
on something.
very real life. Yeah.
Yeah, this was based on very real life, but the vibe of like the old school baseball, the small crowd, the being at an older feeling venue, with the TV broadcast having the different scoreboard and having, as we've been talking about the 1954 style broadcast.
For the top of the
Yeah,
fifth.
yeah, like it it had a very nice, old school, like in very, very old school feel, not like 1980s, 1990s, but 1950s feel that just made the game of baseball feel very genuine.
It absolutely did. Yeah, no, it was very cool to see. I don't know, like MLB doesn't very often like really step out of their comfort zone with stuff like this. Like it's not obviously the Rickwood Field game was a super unique thing they did, but they've also done the London series. They also did the Korea series earlier this year. They did the Field of Dreams game, and the Field of Dreams game, the 2021 one was fantastic. That was, they really did a great job with that one, with bringing Kevin Costner in and having the players come out of right field and all of that. But like they really stepped it up with this. I mean, the Rickwood score bug was really cool. How they had like kind of the old timey thing. And yeah, the big thing was the doing one half inning with the black and white 1954 style broadcast. They kept it and they really went all out with it. It wasn't just black and white. They had no score bug. They had like occasionally the score would pop up in white lettering across the bottom of the screen for a few seconds, right? They would have the behind home plate camera angle and had it kind of stuck there. Um, Even when they did the replay of the double play that the Giants grounded into, they had like the tape recording sound in the background. If you watch that back, yeah, no,
Yeah.
they stepped out of their comfort zone for it and it worked. And like, you know what, even if it didn't work, I would still applaud them for trying it out because it was very fun. But no, it looked fantastic.
Yeah, and it was the whole like two camera setup where
Yep.
they only they only had like two angles, which was very, very cool. Because yeah, if you dive back and like I know there's video of the 1952 World Series on YouTube. It's literally that. That's what it looks like, and it's
Oh,
pretty.
100%. Like the thing that I was wondering is like, what happens when a player drives one out to the outfield? Because like that's I think where the true test comes in. Because yeah, I've randomly watched footage of like 1950s World Series games before. Like I'm human, right? I'm on this podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and like that was one thing I was curious about. Like, are they going to cut the camera? Are they going to randomly cut it like to the right fielder in the middle of the play? And Patrick Bailey hit one out to the warning track in right field for a fly out. They kept it on one angle, and it looked exactly how you think it would look. So that was cool. I'm glad we got to see that. Like even if it was just a half inning, like I feel like we saw kind of everything we really needed to. Like a base hit would have been nice. I think it was a walk double play and then fly out. But yeah, I mean we got to see quite a lot even
Yeah,
just in that. I wouldn't have minded if they had just done it for a full inning, to be honest.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think yeah, half inning they were probably just playing it safe, but yeah, I mean, people like you and I probably would really enjoy it for an inning or a full inning or two full innings. It would be pretty cool. Um, yeah, just a very cool scene. Very, it's something that probably a lot of baseball fans were learning about throughout throughout kind of the genesis of the game and the promotion of the game. They were learning a lot about it. So yeah, just a
Mhm.
very informative and just a very new way of looking at baseball
Mhm.
in a way that a lot of people had not thought about for a while.
Yeah, and by the way, going back to this, I know this is a bit of a change of subject, but going back to Bill Greason, because I really did want to talk about this. 99 years old and looks younger than 99, right?
Yeah,
Like if he could like someone could have told me he was like 80 and I would have been like, yeah, 80, that's fair. But oldest living Negro League player was on the Birmingham Black Barons and was a mentor to Willie Mays when he was on the team. So played with him, saw him as a teenager. And that was something that Ken Rosenthal asked about him was, what did he look like at 17 years old as a player? Grew up across the street from Martin Luther King Jr., took part in the Battle of Iwo Jima, and 53 years as a minister of the Bethel Baptist Church. Like what else is there to do in life?
yeah, it's tough to say. Uh, that's for sure. Yeah, he's led quite a life. He's yeah. That is that's more than I'll probably live, and that's fine. That's
Yeah, I
okay
mean
with
that's
me.
that's an incredibly high bar to clear at any point.
Yeah.
Um yeah, there were a few viral moments that came out of this game. The big one I think was the broadcast. A couple people were talking about Bill Greason. Barry Bonds being there, sort of as an ambassador for the game, it felt like, right? Barry Bonds has not done a lot of public appearances since the end of his playing days, and understandably so. I mean, I think he kind of wanted to go a bit radio silent during the entire Hall of Fame process because, he wanted to just let the process play out and not, further incriminate himself. It's interesting because he and Alex Rodriguez, I think, have gone about it in incredibly different ways. But, I think it was very important for Barry to be there. Everything aside, he is the godson of Willie Mays, right? If you're going to have people there to talk about Willie Mays, there's very few better people to have than Barry Bonds.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean he looked like he was having a lot of fun. Like they had him on the Fox broadcast with Ortiz, with Jeter, and with A-Rod. And I think it was Jeter was like, on the spot, if you face Satchel Paige, what happens? And he goes, "Oh, are you kidding me? Gone." And that ruffled some feathers and whatnot, but like it's fun to see Barry Bonds just kind of letting loose and kind of showing a lot more of a human side to him because there's so much talk about his career and his life and how he was to reporters and the decisions that he made and whatnot. And, I think he's kind of hid himself a lot from the public. I mean, he's on Instagram and he makes a lot of posts and whatnot. And like, but to really see that side of him, it's not something that the national world gets to see often. So it was very fun to get to see that.
Yeah, indeed, for sure. Yeah. Because yeah, it's probably an environment he was fairly comfortable in. I'm sure he was pretty well liked within that environment. So yeah, it's definitely cool to see that. Yeah, I mean, anything more you wanted to add on this game?
Yeah, the other thing, I don't know if you got a chance to see this, the comments that Reggie Jackson made before the game. Did you get a chance to hear these?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, very moving, very, uncomfortable, but uh, I mean, they asked him, a pretty almost like softball question, right? It's very easy to ask, how does it feel to be back here? Because he played in Birmingham at Rickwood as a minor leaguer in the A's organization because the Birmingham A's used to be a team. And he gave the honest answer. I don't know if it was the answer that anyone was expecting, but he talked in great detail about the racism that he faced there in the 1970s, like a decade-ish after the Civil Rights Act was passed. And he talked about being excluded from restaurants, from hotels, from gatherings, and having the N-word hurled at him. And as much as he seemed to have as much as it seemed he felt it was important for him to be there that day, the sentiment that he shared was like, it's not easy for me to come back here, and I wouldn't wish the things that happened to me in this very spot on anyone. Um, and again, this happens in the 1970s, not that long ago, in a lot of our parents' lifetimes or in other people's lifetimes if you're listening to this. And it was a very important thing for him to have said. And I think it moved a lot of people.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stuck with me was like, yeah, I think he said, if I had to do it again, like I wouldn't, I would, or something related to that.
Yeah, that's not usually something you hear people say when they preface it with, if I could do it again.
Right. Yeah. It was, I could be misconstruing his words, but it was something of that sentiment. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was definitely something where, yeah, obviously I don't think anyone on the Fox broadcast expected it, but it was definitely something that probably, yeah, it had to be heard. So yeah, it was good to bring that perspective into it. And because obviously it was, the night, rightfully so, was sort of a celebration of the field and of the Negro Leagues, but obviously you need to have the perspective of the
Hmm.
darker side of everything.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
yeah,
I think any sort of acknowledgement or celebration or recognition of the Negro Leagues has to come with, a lot of the hard truths that come with it because, and I said this, a couple weeks ago, but like the Negro Leagues are something that, a lot of people shouldn't be proud of that they existed
right,
because the Negro Leagues had to exist because it was the only option for a lot of players between the years of 1920 to 1948. And that's, a lot of what they were trying to celebrate because that's the years that MLB officially recognizes the Negro League statistics for.
right. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was all, the night was all sort of dedicated to that. And luckily, and it wasn't the best that it was on a Thursday night, but it was good that it was the only game. It was the only 7 o'clock game that
Yeah.
night. Everything else was a day game, and then there was one West Coast night game that was going on after. So it did have, the baseball spotlight was on it. And yeah, there wasn't a basketball or a hockey game on either, so that also helped out. But yeah, anything more on the game before we kind of move on to what's going on in MLB right now?
No, I think that was it. It was a really nicely done event by Major League Baseball. They obviously they had to make $5 million of renovations to put this game on, which I remember hearing on the broadcast and be like, "Wow, 5 mil? Like that doesn't seem like a lot." But when you think about it, like I feel like you got to put a limit on what you can really do to that field because of the history behind it that has to be preserved.
True. Yeah,
They
exactly.
added lights. I know they added lights to it, because previously night games were not played there.
Hmm. Yeah. Right. Right. So now we get into the modern MLB happenings. Actually, yeah, the Giants and Cardinals who played in that game are kind of both in this discussion, but last week we talked about the what AL teams should do at the trade deadline, at least the fringe teams, and now we're talking about the National League teams, and there are a lot of fringe teams to talk about. But what do we want to get into first with the National League teams?
Yeah, let's talk about a team that is currently sitting at 500. I don't really know what people were expecting from this team. I expect them to not do very well. They're definitely outperforming my expectations, but the St. Louis Cardinals have been very interesting this year. I think they have a very complicated trade deadline ahead of them. They certainly have, some pieces of a young core that look interesting. Mason Wynn has stepped up this year and looked fantastic for them, which is very fun. Nolan Gorman looks like a piece that's going to be there in the future. Sonny Gray has been the ace that they hoped that he would be when they acquired him. And everything out and Ryan Helsley, who is making you look really smart and me look really dumb, based on where we had him in our reliever rankings last year.
Yeah, he's
But
doing okay.
he's doing all right. So what are you thinking for the St. Louis Cardinals?
Yeah, the Cardinals, yeah, they're interesting because a lot of or a lot of the core, or at least a lot of the players that made them successful a couple years ago are getting older. Paul Goldschmidt is, I believe, in the last year of that extension. Um
Yes.
so and then Nolan Arenado, he's not getting any younger. He's 33. So in that case, you wonder, okay, maybe it's time to, or maybe it's time to buy in because there's not a lot of time they have left. However, they aren't really the driving forces of their success. So it's hard to say like, oh, well, you need to get going now because you don't have much time left with them. So I don't know if there really is much of a rush because the people, the players driving their success. I mean, I guess Sonny Gray is one of them, and he's on the older side. So I guess that's another reason to maybe think that this year would be the year to go in. But yeah, you mentioned that young core, Nootbaar, he'll come back at some point. Gorman he's kind of up and down, but I imagine he's a core piece there. So it's kind of a complicated situation. I wouldn't hate if they bought here, because I mean there's going to be a lot of teams that I think are going to hesitate. So why not just be the team that tries to go out there and make some sort of move, and try to get yourself ahead? Because yeah, I mean, Goldschmidt, yeah, I don't know if he's going to be there next year. Arenado, I don't know if he's going to be. He's probably not going to be an MVP finalist again. So I guess yeah, I mean, and Sonny Gray, I don't know how long you're going to have him at this level for. So yeah, why not just try to take a dip? It's not like they have a rearing farm system like really ready to go right now to set up success for the future. So yeah, why not try to add to the team?
I'm gonna play the other side to this one because I think the move might be to sell here if you're the St. Louis Cardinals. First of all, this is maybe the biggest move that could be foreseen is maybe trying to shop Paul Goldschmidt for something because I know that his value, you're not going to get a whole lot for him. I think on namesake, there's a team that will be willing to give you something, maybe a major league piece with control. Nothing too outrageous, but yeah, it's the last year of his contract. You're probably going to eat almost all of it. I mean, the team that gets Paul Goldschmidt is not going to have to pay a lot of money for him, given that, they only have him for 2 months. So, I would try to see what you can get for him. And I think there's a lot of guys out there that you could kind of do the same with, like a guy that they've gotten a lot out of this year, who they maybe weren't expecting so much from, was Kyle Gibson. Kyle Gibson is 36 years old. He has a 3.44 ERA. They signed him to a 1-year deal with a 2025 club option. So, that's something that you can kind of throw into a team that wants to maybe consider trading for him. But also, he's thrown 83 innings this year. Like, he's a guy that's going to qualify for, or on pace to qualify for the ERA title. He has a 48% ground ball rate, as he did last year as well. So I think there's something that you could find for Kyle Gibson out there, maybe even Lance Lynn, same thing. I don't think that this is a team, Chris, that can really buy enough to make them a World Series contender. And I know that the National League playoffs have been all out of whack in the last few years, and anything can really happen. But, this is a division that the Cardinals are in where it doesn't feel like there's any one team that we anticipate they're going to be looking up at for the foreseeable future, right? I mean, you talk about every AL East team, it's like, well, they're going to have to be chasing the Orioles for all these years. You look at any NL East team, and Phillies, or NL West, it's the Dodgers. The NL Central does not have that. The Brewers have looked strong this year, but they don't have that sort of as of right now, they don't sort of have that feeling of, oh, they're going to be here a long time. If you're the Cardinals, maybe try to make yourself that, because there's already a lot of good major league pieces here that are young and have control. We mentioned Mason Wynn, Nolan Gorman, Lars Nootbaar, who is on the IL right now. Why not get what you can and try to make the lineup of the future, or the pitching rotation of the future? And then, you could continue to supplement in any sort of rental pieces that you need, because that's sort of what they've done. They've seemed to get a lot of value out of those guys. And they could really kind of figure something out with this trade deadline.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the Cardinals are just teetering on like buy sell mode, because also their farm system is literally like very middle of the pack. And just their MLB roster is very middle of the pack, and the record reflects that, as they're, at 500 exactly. So yeah, I mean, going in either direction sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any single piece they have out there that they'd be willing to trade that they can get some big return for. Like I said, I'm not anticipating anything big for Paul Goldschmidt, for Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, Miles Michaelis. There's some sort of value that they can attach to that. And I feel like, a lot of, smaller pieces that they get can really add up when you consider the amount of guys they could trade for pieces like that. Also, a lot of relievers, right? Like Andrew Kittredge has looked better for them this year. He's 34. Like Giovanni Gallegos has been there forever. I would keep Helsley just because that is your guy. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting pieces here for sure.
Yeah, and you could also, sort of sell and still compete. We've seen that.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I retool.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it could end up working
Especially
out for
because like
them.
the starting pitching market doesn't feel like there's going to be a whole lot out there at this trade deadline,
Mhm.
right? I mean, who really comes to mind for you? Like maybe Garrett Crochet, if the White Sox are willing to sell high on him.
Right. Yeah, no, there's not really much that comes to mind considering.
Jesus Luzardo, if the Marlins want to sell on him.
Yeah, yeah, you have to wonder. It really just depends on how much teams are willing to give up, but um, based on the past few years, I don't think it's been a whole lot. Um, yeah,
The Marlins have so many pitchers on the IL, dude.
yeah, it's nuts.
Their IL right now is Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera, Jesus Luzardo, Yuri Perez, Sixto Sanchez, Ryan Weathers.
Um,
That is so much talent on one IL.
yeah, it's like I mean,
Wow.
helps they're in the same state as the Rays.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's contagious. Well, I mean, it also helps that Peter Bendix just went there.
Yeah, right.
It's contagious.
Yeah. But anything more on the Cardinals before we move on to Washington, or I don't know.
Washington.
Yeah,
Yeah, Washington.
the Nationals are 37 and 38, but I don't know. I don't really I still don't really have a whole lot of faith in them. Um,
I had a thought like a month or so ago, and it's not going to happen. But like, if you're the Nationals, I don't if like you have a lot of good young pieces. I talked about Mackenzie Gore last week. CJ Abrams has shown flashes of looking really good. DJ Hers had 13 strikeouts in his last start. Mitchell Parker has looked pretty good this year. All three of those aforementioned guys are 25 and younger. You're losing Patrick Corbin this year, or at least losing that contract this year, which is going to open up a lot of, cap space for this team. Like the thing that comes to mind for me is, maybe selling some immediate pieces, but buying for 2025 and beyond. And I had a thought, and thinking about franchise legends for the Nationals slash Expos, there's one name that really comes to mind. And you talk about continuing a legacy and building something that could be the next competitive Nationals team. What if they got Vlad Guerrero Jr.?
ah,
Right?
yeah,
I mean, the Blue Jays said they're not selling on him, but I feel like a change of scenery for him could be useful. The Nationals
right.
don't really have, the Nationals could have him DH, or play first. I mean, they don't really have anyone designated for either right now. I think when you look at 2025, um, you're probably getting him at his lowest value at this point. Like, why not? Why not?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean the Nationals have, I think, some pieces that they'd be willing to disperse. I mean, they have the third highest ranked farm system according to Fangraphs. So, they wouldn't get rid of Dylan Cruz or James
No,
Wood,
no, no, no.
but they could get rid of someone else that the Blue Jays would find value in. Yeah, and it's a good hypothetical. Obviously, the Nationals don't really have anyone designated at first base. So yeah, I mean, it would be cool. It would be cool for the storyline,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I don't know. I don't know if it is the wisest move. Maybe Mike Rizzo. I'm sure there's plenty of counterpoints I can think of as to why the Nationals shouldn't trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But it's a very fun thought, right?
it is a fun thought.
You think about Vlad, CJ Abrams, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, leading your offense uh in a given year. And then you have, Gore, maybe they sign some pitching. And, if Parker and Hurst continue to look good, that's three really good lefties in the rotation. Like it seems pretty fun.
Yeah, I think maybe if they were in the NL Central, it would be more
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
enticing.
I would pick them to win the division.
Yeah, right. But yeah, because they have the Braves and Phillies ahead of them, it might be tough to think about, trying to have immediate success right now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's a fun hypothetical for sure.
It's very
Um,
fun. Anyway, that's the Nationals. Um, yeah, I think there's an almost 0% chance that they even consider it, especially because the Blue Jays have already come out and said it doesn't make sense to trade Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but you still never know. Um, yeah, losing out on Corbin's contract or getting that off the books, I think really uh seems very intriguing to me.
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, because the Nationals have shown willingness to spend when they are in a competitive window, so it's just about getting in that competitive window.
Also,
Um,
is Steven Strasburg like not on the payroll anymore? Like what's the deal with him? Because he's no long because they just removed him from the 40 man.
yeah, I don't know. I think
Because
they
he announced his retirement last year, but they kept him on the 40 man like this year. Like, does that money go against them? Like, I'm not too sure how that works. But if you don't have to worry about those two contracts in terms of your major league payroll, like that opens up so many possibilities, and you already have such a young core uh with you going forward.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, so yeah, so yeah, Nationals could be interesting, and maybe they're arriving sooner than we maybe would have expected. So yeah, it's pretty cool to look at.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, I don't know, I don't really know what there is to sell, like Eddie Rosario maybe,
right.
like like maybe Lane Thomas, Hunter Harvey, but like I don't know, nothing too major, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even
Exactly.
know if Joey Gallo is going to go for anything at this point, but he's also hurt too, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, it's not help. But yeah, so the team right behind them in the National League East is the New York Mets, who have been sort of taking baseball by storm. It's the old grimace thing that's
Yeah.
happening. Big
Yes,
thing. They are, I think, 8-1 since he threw the first pitch or something like that.
that is correct.
Yeah,
They rocked Shota Imanaga yesterday, won that
they
game 11-1.
they did. They hit three
Yeah.
home runs off of him. Yeah, what are you thinking about what the
Yeah.
Mets or what the possibilities are for the Mets right now?
Well, the Mets are buying. I mean, I don't think there's any, and I mean, it's crazy how things change, right? Like, if we did this podcast last week and maybe we were talking about trading Pete Alonso, I don't think that's something they're gonna do now, because there's a playoff push in this team at this point in time. They do have, they're I'm assuming hoping to get Kodai Senga back at some point this year. What is the status on him exactly?
I feel like I've heard that he's making steps.
Threw another bull. This was from Thursday. He threw another bullpen session on Wednesday. Manager Carlos Mendoza said afterward that the right-hander's next step could be facing hitters in live batting practice. So it doesn't seem like he's back in the immediate future, but I mean this year is definitely, I'm sure, like the most likely possibility. Yeah, they've looked a lot better. The Grimace has obviously changed the season around. Francisco Lindor is so back,
Yeah.
right? Like
Who-
he's been at the forefront of this comeback right here that they've had. He's been, I think, like the third highest FWAR among position players in the last month.
Yeah, he's been there. He obviously faced some very horrid batted ball luck
Hmm.
for the first month and a half, 2 months of the year, and finally that's kind of recorrecting. But yeah, he's been excellent. He almost has 3 wins above replacement overall, even with that horrible luck to start the year. His outs above his defense is better than ever, at least according to outs above average. So yeah, I mean things are looking great for him. And I think yeah, the offense is sort of righting itself with Lindor sort of leading the way. Brendan Nimmo is sort of defeating his, batted ball
Hmm.
luck. He's turned it around the past, or at least the month of June, he's been pretty good. So yeah, I think they're showcasing their talent that they always had, but they're performing up to that level right now, which is really cool. And
If
with
I'm
with the NL wildcard race the way it is, there's actual possibilities for them to actually get in.
Yeah, I mean the Mets' biggest need is, I think, starting pitching. You get Kodai back and that's great, but there's still a lot of wild cards in this rotation as it looks right now. Luis Severino, David Peterson, Sean Manaea, Jose Quintana, Tyler McGill. Like there's not a whole lot that you can really bank on in that rotation. And then some others include like Jose Buto, Christian Scott. Here's my big question. I mean, obviously go out and get starting pitching because Kodai's gonna be back, but you don't know how he's gonna look coming off of an injury. But I mean, if the Mets are really looking to make a big splash, like, is there a team that makes more sense for Luis Robert? Because
Um,
the Mets have Harrison Bader playing center, and respectfully, I feel like anything Bader could do, Luis Robert could do better. Like they're
yeah,
pretty on par with defense. I mean, maybe Bader can hit for better average. That's the thing I'll give them. Only thing is the White Sox are looking for a massive haul for Luis Robert because they have him on a very team friendly contract. Obviously, something that we know the Mets won't be phased by. Um, but do they have the pieces to do that? You'd have to probably look at the pieces they got from the Verlander trade. The Luis Angel Acuna, the Drew Gilberts. If there's still any belief in Brett Beatty, they could throw him in there. Mark Vientos. it's gonna cost you a lot, but that's a thought that I have. If the Mets want to go out and make a big splash and really, show the team show the fans that they're investing here, like that's the big piece.
Yeah, exactly. He's not making a whole lot of money and he's under control. They could have him through 2027 as well. So
Mhm.
that's
I believe there was a report that said that they are looking for a Soto type return, which,
right.
are they gonna get that? I would guess no, but I think it's gonna be a strong return because of you already know you don't have to worry about paying him a ton, and you get him for another 3 seasons after this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I think yeah, the selling point would be what he did last year. He's still kind of sort of getting his footing under him this year, it seems. So
Mhm.
um, so yeah, I mean
He does have a sub 200 average, and I'm sure there'd be a lot of reactionary takes that come from that potential trade from the New York media.
yeah, I'm sure they'd be very objective and smart about it.
Yeah, they,
Like
they
they
would
were with
definitely they would definitely be looking big picture for sure,
Oh yeah, yeah, they would, just like
which
they
is
were
something which is usually what they do.
yeah, just like they were with Lindor,
Yeah, exactly.
earlier this season. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, so yeah,
But
it would be interesting.
pitching should probably be the top priority. I think the Mets offense as it stands is good enough to make a run in the playoffs. They just need some starters.
Um, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so the Mets shall buy away. And yeah, I mean, I don't think they're really far off from what we thought they would be this season. It's just the NL wild card race has been so mediocre that they might
Yes.
actually have a shot to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're 2 games under 500, and we're like, should this team trade for Luis Robert? Is that the
Yeah.
piece to make them a World Series contender? Like that's the state. It's the state of the National League and also the state of expanded playoffs and just the luck that have it with the 6 seeds in the National League going to the World Series in 2 straight years.
Right. Yeah, that does throw things off. Do we want to talk about the Reds?
Let's talk about the Reds.
Um, yeah, so they're 3 games under 500. Obviously very young core. They're
Very young core with more coming.
yeah, with more coming. So it does make you wonder, like, obviously there's not really any rush with this team. It's not like
Hmm.
they're in a win now mode necessarily. But yeah, I mean they're very intriguing and could make a run if they have the right pieces. Um, what do you think? What are you thinking about what they should be doing?
Well, I mean, the if we're looking ahead beyond 2024, I mean, the Reds, are very much still in the playoff picture for 2024. I mean, we saw the run that they made on in June and July last year, and I think they're certainly capable of doing that again. Um, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what there is to do because they have been plagued by a lot of unfortunate things, injury, underperformance, what have you. Um, Something that you need to consider with the Reds that really no other team that we're talking about in this like fringe buy sell segment has is for 2025, you got to consider the potential first round draft pick that they might make because this is
Right.
the team with the number 2 pick in the draft, right? I mean, we're realistically looking at a guy from whether it be Bizana, whether it be Condon, whether it be Caglione. I would have to imagine they go position player in this draft because it's a very position player heavy draft. They have a lot of young pitching with Green, with Lodolo. They already have Rhett Lauder in the minors. I would go position player, especially because investing in any pitcher is always going to be a risk no matter what. And the arguably the top pitcher out there is a guy that throws really hard and isn't exactly the largest guy. So like automatically that's where like the stereotypical alarm bells start going off. So like, there is a reason to consider, hey, we might have a guy that rips through the minors like last year's top prospects did. Where do we look into putting that guy?
Yeah, that is a thing to think about for sure for Cincinnati. Um, but uh, but yeah, with the Reds currently, yeah, it's
This
it's
is
tough
a tough
to
one.
it's a tough one. I mean, I don't think they should be doing anything too too aggressive, definitely. I mean,
Mhm.
they could make some trades, but I don't think they should be risking any part of their future for the success of this team. They have a young core. They can obviously, I could see them definitely being, um, you know, big division contenders, more than they are now, like next year or the year after, based on the talent they have, whether it be on the roster or, Noel Marte is suspended right now. I'm sure he'll be
Yeah.
good when he comes back. But yeah, I think given the young core, given the team control, um, I think they should kind of hold on to whatever they have now to prepare. And if they do make moves, I think it should be more retooling and just kind of moving things around.
Yeah, this is probably not the analysis that anyone really wanted, but there's the maybe big hypothetical is maybe they do something to address the log jam in the middle infield, right? Like you have Jonathan India, you have Ellie De La Cruz, you have not even just the middle infield, but the infield in general. You have Steer, Encarnacion, Strand, Marte. Uh, they could be drafting another infielder for all we know because the idea of the draft is to take the best player available regardless of position. But uh, yeah, there's a lot to wonder. I don't think they do anything drastic. I don't think they have any big selling pieces that they need to be shipping off. I don't think there's any big chips they need to be buying in on. Yeah, make a couple small moves here or there. Um, because, I think this is a team that needs to look more big picture than anything right now, but also like it doesn't hurt to go out and really just go out and try to do a playoff run because City hasn't really had one in a while. 2020 doesn't count. I don't care if they made it. Um, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. The Reds are maybe the most difficult team in this entire thing here
Yeah, most likely. Yeah,
because there's a core here that if they perform the way that they're supposed to, could be a very real playoff contender for years to come. And we haven't really gotten that this year for several reasons. There's been injuries to Matt McLean, Christian Encarnacion Strand, the suspension of Marte. Um, yeah.
right. Um, yeah, and I think the Pirates, who are the next team to look at, are in a fairly similar position, not necessarily like underperforming this year, but they have a core of younger guys, at least and not on the position player front, but the pitching front, um,
Mhm.
that they seem to have um, for a decent amount of control, and they probably are gonna save some people for the future. Any particular thoughts on the Pirates?
So Robert Murray from Fanside had actually had this earlier this week. Bob Nutting had actually made some comments to reporters. This was on Friday, where he said that the team is prepared to move early on the trade market and that general manager Ben Cherington has the flexibility to look across a broader range of alternatives. The only real consideration to come from that quote is prepared to move early because I feel like he has the flexibility to look across a broader range of alternatives is remarkably cliche and
Yeah.
kind of just a bunch of words that don't really mean much. So there's a lot of interesting things there. It's probably a team that buys. I mean, this is the best. I mean, if we're being honest, when was the last time in June we felt like the Pirates had this kind of realistic playoff chances, not just for this year, but also kind of going forward? Because Paul Skeens and Jared Jones have worked out for them tremendously. Mitch Keller has been really solid for them for the last month and a half. Um, the lineup is doing what they can. I think if you're going to supplement things, that's where you do it. That's another team where you can maybe go consider the big Luis Robert deal. That's very much a fantasy because we know who Bob Nutting is, but would be fun.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it would be yeah, they're definitely interesting to look at. I wonder how much faith they have in like the future of the team, and how if they think like, this is worth saving some time for. Um, yeah, I could definitely see like a retooling thing, that where it's not necessarily a buy or sell move. But yeah, I think with them, it's going to depend a lot on what they do in the next month. I know the quote was that they were going to move early, but um, I could easily see them sort of losing and going full sell mode in the next month.
Yeah,
But
I mean that's 100% a realistic possibility because it's happened before, right? The 2019 10,000 simulations quote that Neil Huntington had.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Um, yeah, that's a really real possibility. But I mean, if they're gonna move early, then that could really lead to more moves. Do I think they're going to move early? I'm gonna bank on no, to be honest. I don't know.
yeah,
I still don't, I know that Bob made the comments. I don't really see it. He's never really wanted to hold himself accountable for things that he says and you know, doesn't move forward on.
yeah,
So
right.
I don't know, but they do have a lot of starting pitchers on the IL. I could see them honestly getting like maybe not exactly this, but like a type, like one of those Cardinal starters that I mentioned, like just another
True.
starting pitcher that can go out that can throw out there for innings and get on a cheap price, like a Kyle Gibson.
Yeah, especially, it would probably help out the yeah, it would probably help out the rest of the rotation too, to just have a guy
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah, have a guy
Um,
go out and eat innings.
yeah,
Maybe put up
exactly.
some good outings. Because
Yes,
yeah, I mean, it's because if they acquire a pitcher, like there's no reason for them to ask them to be an ace because they kind of have two already, maybe three,
yeah, true. Yeah. It's very cool. Very
like a
it's
Michael Lorenzen type almost.
Yeah, right, out of Texas. And now we're on to the San Francisco Giants, who have had some of the worst luck in the league this year. Horrible injury luck. For me, just looking at how much bad luck they've had, I feel like they got to take the L on this season a little bit. Like it's going to be hard to fix with how much they have on the IL right now.
I would kind of agree. They spent what's their payroll this year? It's 209 million. So it's hard to say selling a team you spent 200 million on. So I don't think that's the route they're going to go down, but I would not be too mad if they did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. But I think optimistically speaking, a lot of the players that um are on the IL are like signed on for at least next year to probably make an impact next year. So
Hmm.
if they're probably not going to sell on 2025, I don't know what they have necessarily for rentals right now. If
They
I
really don't.
Yeah, I don't
They
think they
really don't. They signed a bunch of contracts.
yeah, so, not to press the retool button, but not to spam retool, but that just kind of seems like the route to go. Yeah, I mean, Conforto's like their highest prized rental, and they're not getting anything out of him, and I don't know if he's even healthy right now. Um, so yeah, it's just kind of you deal with the bad luck, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I know that nobody likes when people do it when their team does this at the trade deadline, but sometimes it is just what makes the most sense. You're not even obligated to do anything, man.
Yeah,
Like you have a team that's, even with all the injuries, I know that the rotation is badly beat up right now. According to Fangraphs, they have exactly two starting pitchers with Logan Webb and Jordan Hicks, and none of the other pitchers really seem like they're coming back anytime soon. I mean, Blake Snell, where are we at with Blake Snell? Uh, Scheduled to throw a 3 inning simulated game on Tuesday. That was last week, which, could mean a couple weeks at best. Kyle Harrison didn't he have a season ender?
it says he's on the 15-day IL,
Okay,
so
right, a right ankle sprain. That just doesn't feel good though.
that's
It's
just
not
weird
as
for a pitcher.
I know. That's not a usual pitcher injury. Tristan Beck, I'm pretty sure was out for the year, though. That was a thing. Keaton Wynn just went down. He pitched in the Rickwood Field game, and afterwards, it doesn't say that he went on the IL, but he is on the IL.
Yeah, and then position player wise, they got Lamont Wade Jr. on the IL. They got Jung Hoo Lee out for the year.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's just a bad luck of the draw.
yeah. Like they don't really have much rentals to sell. They have a core that's good enough to compete next year. Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know if anyone will take a lot of the contracts that they have with guys like Soler, with Chapman, with Snell. Like, it's not gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, like, and this is I know that this is not the analysis that anyone wants, but like sometimes it makes sense to just not really do anything.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that for sure. I think there's a lot of pressure to because there's a deadline, there's a lot of pressure to do something, but sometimes there's just no objectively smart move to make,
Yeah.
other than to stay
Because
put.
like, this team is what? How many games are they out from the wild card? 2 games out. Like, yeah, they could make a run. Like maybe you trade for a pitcher or two with as long as you're not giving up anything crazy. Like that's honestly that might be the move. Trade for some pitching. Uh like nothing, you don't need to ask anyone to be an ace because you have Logan Webb. But just giving people some innings, letting the bullpen rest a little bit. And I think the team as is still capable of making a run and finding their way into a playoff spot.
Right. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, like yeah, there's a possibility for them, but I think Giants fans would agree like they probably like their odds better in 2025 than 2024 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just kind of I don't know. You could kind of wait for that and just hope for the best this year. Um, anything more before we dive into our last team?
Our final team. Now let's talk about my 2024 NL Central Division champion, last
Mine as
place Chicago
well.
Cubs.
Yeah. Yeah, they have been pretty disappointing as of late. And yeah, they're definitely an interesting team because I think among all these teams, they probably have the highest expectations, but they're the
Yeah.
last team we're talking about because they have the worst record among these like NL fringe teams. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's been especially
Yeah.
bad since about May. But yeah, like it's a I think there's an argument both ways, but I think if they were to sell, I think their biggest sell piece would be Cody Bellinger because he's likely going to be a free agent after this year.
I don't think they
Um,
need to sell.
yeah, I mean it's yeah, like yeah, with buying, I'm wondering what they would try to get for sure.
I can tell you exactly what they're going to get, as many relief pitchers as possible,
Mm,
because that's been their problem this year. It's been the bullpen. Uh, they've blown a lot of games. I'm trying to find like the actual numbers right now. Um,
yeah, I mean they have Hector Neris as their closer.
yeah. The Cubs bullpen ranks 20th in Major League Baseball in win probability added. And all of the, a lot of like seller type teams are below them. Like the bottom three teams are the A's, Rockies, and White Sox. Three teams that, oh, and the bottom four, those three and the Marlins. So like four teams that were not good enough to make the segment. The Angels are also below them. Uh, the Cubs bullpen has been among the worst when you consider like the competing teams. Actually,
Yeah,
wait,
and
that was just starting pitching.
they have the
That's just Cubs pitching in general.
yeah,
No,
they have
let me update that.
the seventh worst bullpen ERA in MLB and the third worst in the
Okay.
NL.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. By the way, the actual stat, the one I meant to give you, the Cubs bullpen has a negative 1.33 win probability added. That is the third worst in Major League Baseball, ahead of only the Colorado Rockies and Chicago White Sox.
yeah,
Uh, that tells you what you need to know, pretty much everything you need to know. This team needs a bullpen. They were a bullpen away from being comfortably in a playoff spot with how it's been there.
yeah, and and yeah, like um, bullpen pieces don't cost really anything typically.
No.
It's surprising how little teams end up giving up for good relievers. I mean, I guess the best example of a return for a reliever was Gleyber Torres, but that's it was for one of the
Yeah.
greatest relief pitchers of the era. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you just get a guy who's pretty good, and you get four guys who are pretty good, you don't have to give off one single top 100 prospect for that typically. So
Yeah.
it's probably going to be a low risk, but pretty rewarding if they
Yeah, and
do.
I mean, I feel like this is a year where the Cubs kind of have to go for it. Like, they had high expectations coming into the year. They have a payroll well over 200 million. Not quite at the luxury tax, but they're pretty close to it. And the division is, I would say, out of hand at this point. They are 8 games out of behind the Brewers. Definitely not the likely path to the playoffs, but certainly not an impossible one. I think this team kind of has to go for it. I feel like they have the most reason to go for it out of maybe every team that we've talked about, other than the Mets. Yeah, and I mean the offense as it stands is like maybe 1 or 2 pieces away from looking like you could put this lineup in the playoffs, right? I mean, like they're almost at full strength right now. The only person they're really missing is Mike Talkman, who's on the injured list. They just desperately need as many bullpen pieces as they can possibly get because Hector
Right.
Neris just is not cutting it right now.
Yeah, and you could easily see them being being a team that gets on a hot streak and, kind of takes over in that NL, just the National League playoff race. So yeah, you wonder, and I think why we expect them to maybe buy is because of how much pressure they had coming into the season to succeed. The reason why I'm maybe hesitating more is they don't have really anyone leaving next year outside of possibly Cody Bellinger, and that could be, restructured by the Cubs. But everyone that's made them successful is gonna be there next year. So it's not necessarily that there's a whole lot of pressure to buy specifically this year. Maybe specifically next year they'll have a big reason to buy because I think they would have to like restructure Shota Imanaga's contract after the year, and other players would have their contracts winding down. But this year, I think I don't know how much noise they're gonna make in the playoffs if they get there. But bullpen pieces I think would be the move if they were to buy because they just don't usually cost a lot.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, the name that might be floating through your head is Mason Miller. I'm going to be fully transparent. I don't think the A's are going to move on from him quite yet. I know that's shocking. Again, hey, who am I to put that kind of expectation on that franchise? I still don't think they move on it from him at this point. But there are some guys out there, right? I mean, I think of the team that we talked about earlier, like the Nationals. Like maybe the Cubs go out and get a guy like Hunter Harvey,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
who's been a really solid closer for them this year. Maybe they go out and get David Robertson from Texas. They bring him back because he was a Cub at one point, I believe,
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
like recently. And he's
Yeah, like
been all right for them.
2022 maybe.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I remember facing him as a Cub on MLB The Show.
nice. Yeah, I mean,
But
there's plenty of guys that you can go out and find on the reliever market. Some from fringe teams, some from bad teams. You go out and get whoever you need, but get bullpen pitchers. Like that's what the Cubs absolutely 100% have to do at this point.
yeah, for sure.
Honestly, start now. Like why, I know that value goes down and teams, really cherish that, but like just because there's a deadline doesn't mean you have to wait until the deadline. Like go do it now. Like you're only going to put yourself more and more out of the playoff picture without when you don't add more bullpen pieces because they're going to keep blowing leads because that's what they've done all year.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Do it now.
Yeah, anything more on the Cubs?
No, I mean I think we've made the case very clear with them.
Yeah, I think it's pretty concrete. Yeah, so that shall do it for the NL trade type trade deadline topic. Do we want to get into players to highlight now?
Let's do it.
All right. So yeah, now we will go from we'll start with the lows, so we end with highs, but we will be starting with our Saturday, June 22, 2024 edition of slightly alarming statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats. He's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting a
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, that's right. For my slightly alarming today, this is a guy that I put, I believe, number 4 on my starting pitcher list for this year. You also had him in your top 10. I think it was outside your top 5, though. I'm talking about Kevin Gausman, who has not looked the same this year for the Blue Jays. Am I right in that ranking?
I had him number 6, so you were right
Yeah,
on.
so outside of the top 5. Yeah. This season so far, he has a 4.24 ERA and a 3.70 FIP in 80 and 2/3 innings pitched. I know that's not the worst numbers that we've ever put on Slightly Alarming, but it's definitely not up to the Kevin Gausman standard. And what's concerning me is kind of the things that have brought those numbers up, because they seem like the things that could be sustained. Gausman has thrown his four-seam fastball 50% of the time this season, which is on par with what he's pretty much always done. And opponents are hitting 320 and slugging 575 against his four-seamer with even worse expected stats. So the pitch that he has made a living off of, throwing 50% of the time, has not been working for him. Obviously, the split finger is what you know him for, which has still been all right. But Gausman's four-seamer is also down 1 mile per hour from last year. Between 2021 to 2023, about 40 to 50% of Kevin Gausman's four-seamers were 95 miles per hour or higher. And in 2024, that number has gone down to just 27.7%. And in 2024, opponents are hitting 343 and slugging 612 against Kevin Gausman four-seamers that are below 95 miles an hour. So the loss of velocity has really been hurting him on the pitch that he has thrown, like I said, over half the time. Also in 2023, 35.2% of all batted balls hit against Kevin Gausman were pulled. And in 2024, that number has rose to 45.9%. That is a 10.7% increase, the seventh highest among the 236 qualifying pitchers. Opponents are hitting 351 and slugging 604 when they pull the ball against Kevin Gausman, and they're doing that 45.9% of the time. He has also had a lot of trouble with putting guys away. From 2021 through 23, his called strike and whiff rate with two strikes ranged from 21 to 24%, and in 2024, it is 8.9%. So he's having a bit more trouble with two strikes. And overall, he's also kind of just having trouble throwing strikes and getting strikeouts in any situation. His 8.8 strikeouts per nine are the lowest in any season of his since 2018. His whiff rate of 24.5% is his lowest since 2018. And also his zone contact rate this year is at 84%. That is the highest that it's been in the StatCast era. The previous high for him was 82.1% also in 2018. So we've seen quite a lot of, under the hood regression from Kevin Gausman this year. The numbers haven't followed quite to the same degree, but they've certainly followed. And there's definitely a lot of worry on if this is something that we could continue to see from him going forward.
Kevin Gausman.
Slightly alarming.
We've come to know him the past couple years, or his entire time with Toronto and probably the year before with San Francisco as, a premier strikeout to walk ratio guy. But yeah, the strikeouts are not all the way there this year for a variety of factors. And yeah, that fastball velocity does not seem to be a good sign, especially, he's someone who's kind of dipping into his mid-30s right now, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, unfortunate, and probably a little bit of why the Blue Jays are underperforming this year. My slightly alarming, I think this is the second week in a row we have a Brewer on slightly alarming, although they're doing well, just happened to roll this way. But it is one of their new additions of the lineup this year. It is Rhys Hoskins, who's been struggling for most of the month of June. In his last 14 games, Rhys Hoskins is hitting 160 with a 418 OPS. And out of 186 qualifiers in this span, his slugging is 9th lowest and OPS is 10th lowest. His expected numbers actually rank worse. Out of 160 hitters with 200 plus pitches seen in the span, Rhys Hoskins' expected slugging is 4th lowest and expected WOBA is 3rd lowest. Also, and probably the reason why is his strikeout rate is absolutely absurd in this span. His strikeout rate has gone from 21% before the span to 39% in this span. And out of 186 qualifiers, his strikeout rate is 3rd highest. And a lot of that has to do with him just generally swinging and missing more naturally. His whiff rate has gone from 24% to 35%. And out of 160 hitters, his whiff rate is 12th highest. Specifically on four-seamers, which is not a pitch that is traditionally swung and missed at, his whiff rate on four-seamers has gone from 22% to 35%. And out of 223 hitters to see 50-plus four-seamers in the span, his whiff rate on them is 19th highest, top 10% comfortably. And then also his whiff rate on sliders is 52%, and out of 41 hitters to see 50+ sliders in the span, his whiff rate on them is third highest. So I think pitchers know to throw a lot of sliders against him. He's seen some of the most sliders out there, and he's not doing well on them, swinging and missing at them 52% of the time. So yeah, Rhys Hoskins been struggling the last couple weeks, and he is getting a
slightly alarming.
So yeah, now we move from the lows to the highs, where we were talking players and subjects that have been outperforming their expectations with our Saturday, June 22nd, 2024 edition of How About That?
He's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
And he is getting a
How about that?
Yeah, so for my How About That, I'm talking about a guy that Chris and I briefly mentioned off air before restarting the podcast. It's Heliot Ramos from the San Francisco Giants. I mean, it's pretty unavoidable to talk about him at this point because since May 23rd, which goes back a month, he is slashing 320, 405, 630 for a 1035 OPS and a 170 weighted runs created plus. There are so many spans you could have picked for Heliot Ramos. This is the one that I went with. But there's plenty of others as well. His 1.7 FWAR in the span ranks the fourth highest among the 177 qualifiers. I believe he only trails Gunnar Henderson, Aaron Judge, and Francisco Lindor in that time. So those are three pretty big names. He also ranks sixth in weighted runs created plus during that span. Throughout this season entirely, he has a 530 slugging percentage, xslug, 530 xslug, 92.4 mile per hour average exit velocity, a 16.7% barrel rate, a 54.5% hard hit rate. All of those rank in the top 10%. So he's been a pretty elite hitter in terms of batted ball metrics. This season, his average bat speed of 75.8 miles per hour ranks 11th highest among the 251 hitters with at least 300 total swings taken throughout the season. So he's swinging the bat really quickly, and all of the correlating bat metrics have followed. 12.8% of his swings have been blasts this season. That is the 15th highest rate on that same list. His 10 home runs in 170 plate appearances this season can be attributed to the fact that his 96.3 mile per hour average exit velocity on fly balls is a thing. That ranks 21st in the highest average exit velocity category among the 277 hitters with at least 25 fly balls hit throughout the season. This is the thing that I found really interesting above all else. Heliot Ramos has a 34.3% sweet spot rate this season, which isn't too crazy. It's right around the league average. But 77.1% of all batted balls in the sweet spot of his have been hard hit. And that is the highest rate among the 331 hitters with at least 25 batted balls hit in the sweet spot this season. So again, when he hits the ball between 8 to 32 degrees, 77% of the time is hard hit. So that definitely explains a lot of the success that he's had on batted balls. It explains the 391 BABIP, certainly. In 48 plate appearances ending on four-seam fastballs, Heliot Ramos has a 75% hard hit rate against them. That is the highest hard hit rate on four-seamers among the 378 hitters with at least 25 plate appearances that ended against four-seamers. He is hitting 342 and slugging 737 against four-seamers. And additionally, he also has a 79th percentile outs above average and a 74th percentile sprint speed. So he's playing elite defense, he's running the bases very well, and he's hitting the ball like the best of them. So Heliot Ramos, the numbers definitely pop out when you look at the leaders over the last month, but a lot of them can be justified to various batted ball metrics.
Yeah, Heliot Ramos.
How about that?
Yeah, he's definitely been, whatever success the Giants have had, a lot of that can be attributed to Heliot Ramos over the last, pretty much throughout the month. My How About That is another outfielder from a black and orange team, if you want to have that as a similarity, but he was not my top 10 right fielders. He was in yours top 10. It is Anthony Santander, who I think if he had a little bit more notoriety wouldn't be qualified to be in the How About That, but I think he's kind of on the fringe.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Yeah, with what he's done, he's definitely deserved a little bit of a spotlight. And in the month of June, he is hitting 300 with a 1090 OPS and 11 home runs. Out of 183 qualifiers in the month of June, his slugging ranks 4th and OPS ranks 8th. He also leads all of baseball in home runs this month. And out of 133 hitters with 250 plus pitches seen in this span, his expected slugging ranks 5th and expected WOBA ranks 9th, which is pretty on par with his on the surface rankings. Part of this has to do with him hitting the ball harder. His average exit velocity has gone from 87.6 miles per hour before June to 91.5 miles per hour in June. Also, a little bit of better batted ball distribution. His pop-up rate has gone from 15% before the span to 7% before in the span, which is cut it by more than half, which is very nice because pop-up rates are never really hits. Pop-ups are never really hits, excuse me. His sweet spot rate has gone from 35% to 45%. And out of 82 hitters with 50 plus batted balls in this span, his sweet spot rate ranks 9th. Also, his rate of batted balls that are hard hit and in the sweet spot has gone from 21% to 31%. And out of 82 hitters, his hard hit sweet spot rate is the 4th highest. Why that's important is those are usually very, very competitive batted balls, and that is shown by the fact that he is hitting 650 and slugging at 2100 on those batted balls, those hard hit in the sweet spot batted balls. And part of his sweet spot rate going up is due to his fly ball rate going up. That fly ball rate has gone from 29% to 37%, making those 11 home runs make a good bit of sense. And out of 82 hitters, his fly ball rate is the 6th highest. And partially due to that, his barrel rate has gone from 7% to 19%. And out of 82 hitters, his barrel rate is the 6th highest. So yeah, Anthony Santander has been excellent in the month of June, showing his value to that Orioles offense because, with the Orioles, with how many guys they have coming up, there could be someone that could be threatening someone's playing time, no matter how good they are. So Anthony Santander is definitely shown why he's a mainstay with the Orioles. He's getting a...
How about that?
Yeah, so that does it for players to highlight. And the dog did not eat my homework this time around. So luckily I have Savant trivia prepared this week. Of a similar tune. I kind of play copycat with Daniel here, so it's of a similar tune to the guess the expected batting average. I'm taking away sort of the expected element of it. It's just guess that launch angle. So
oh wow, okay. I think I get it.
Yeah, you see a batted ball and you guess the launch angle. I think I had a point system. I forgot to write down the point system, but I think it's gonna be 10 points if you get it exactly. I think 8 if you get it 8 if you get it 1 to... Let me pause this so I...
Yeah.
So yeah, I made my on the fly scoring system.
Yeah.
If you get it exactly, it is 5 points. If you get within 1 to 3, that is 4 points. If you get 4 to 6, that's 3 points. 7 to 10 is 2 points, and within 20 is 1 point. So if you're outside the range of 20, that is 0 points. So I feel like, we'll see. We're still kind of figuring out these games and the scoring system.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be, no matter how good or bad we do, I think we're gonna have a good time. Yeah, so without further ado, let's see if I can get it correctly. And yeah, so okay.
This is the hardest part, is trying to figure out how to do the screen share and everything.
Yeah. So yeah, our first one.
La one.
Or wait. Screen sharing is
share.
stopped as the shared window is closed. Okay, all right.
You have
now we're gonna do this
close
one.
up a different tab, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all
that's
right.
the whole thing. Okay, Jackson Merrill. So this will absolutely be hit to the opposite field or up the middle. So I've never seen him pull a ball.
Line into center field, a base hit. From third comes Cronenworth.
All right.
If you want
a line drive.
Feel free to
line
request.
drive. Up the middle, like I said. Um, I mean, my immediate thought is like in like the 13 to 18 range. I could just be cheap and go 15. Just to play the round number. I'll be a little weird here. I'll go with a 14-degree launch angle.
So that one was 10 degrees.
Okay.
So that is going to be 3 points
All right, I'll take it.
for
Good start.
Daniel. Let me log that into the scoreboard.
Yeah.
But I'll just I could probably keep it in my head because Google Chrome is a bit slow. So yeah, start off with a 3-pointer. So that's pretty nice. So now we will go second one. Yes, we'll go with the second one when I pull that up. Here we go. Recents. All right. I think we should be good to go. All right. Second one.
It worked.
Jose Ramirez.
Jose
Yeah.
straight up on the infield.
I mean, you see Jose Ramirez,
Right
you're expecting it's going to be in the
second
air.
baseman,
That's a pop-up.
Torres.
That one is probably, I mean, that's a pop-up, right? So, and I believe the definition of a pop-up is anything above 60. Definitely looked like more of a pop-up than a fly ball. I'm gonna go with like 63 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, not bad at all. This is going to be one of our tougher. Or wait, did I just give away all the answers there?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, okay, good.
Nope.
Because I went to the tab and I thought I was sharing it.
Nope, didn't see it at all.
Okay, well, this was probably maybe the most difficult one. It was 69. Nice.
Okay, nice. Yeah,
So-
6 degrees off.
So yeah, so that is another 3-pointer.
Right.
So that is 6 points for you. But yeah, that's probably going to be that might end up being the toughest one. So if there was going to be one that you were going to be off on, I thought it might be that one.
Okay.
But yeah, that one is that one is going to be a 3-pointer for you.
Awesome.
So yeah, and also I wanted to say, like, yeah, that's me showing growth. This is Jose Ramirez. He's hit a pop-up.
Yeah.
I'm
They do
anti-pop.
exist, like
Yeah.
a pretty good amount of the time.
Yeah, he doesn't have a 5,000 OPS, so he's not always gonna be excellent. So I need to show that. But yeah, now on to Law 3. Yeah, here we go.
He's going to take a bite out.
Yeah, I brought a peanut butter and jelly. He was going to bite out of it. What happened to Ben, by the way? Where did he go? Rutschman, that's a fair ball inside the chalk, left side.
So, I mean, that's definitely a bit higher than the 10 that we saw on the first one from Jackson Merrill, but not too much higher. I mean, that's not a fly ball. That's a line drive all day. So I'm thinking like 18 degrees on that Adley Rutschman hit.
All right, so that's going to be a 4-pointer for you because that was 21.
Yeah.
So you were within 3
I'm
there.
doing great.
Yeah, this is a solid performance. So yeah, that is so now you were up to 10 points. All right, now we will, if we have time, I think we do have time. We will move on to Law 4 as I pull it up here.
Yeah.
Making sure oh wait, no, not that one. All right, this one. Here we go.
In the first inning, and no run.
Andrew Vaughn. Oh, against my slightly alarming Kevin Gosman. That's a ground ball though.
Lopez coming home.
For a lifeline, can I see it again?
Oh
Is
yeah,
that a
you can see it
lifeline?
you can see it as many times as you like.
All right. Oh yeah, I mean that's well into the ground. I mean that looked like a hit distance of less than 10 feet. Yeah, I mean that one was punched in there. I'm going like I'm thinking like between -25 to 35. I'm gonna go with like -32 degrees. Might be a bit extreme, but I mean that was punched into the ground.
So you will be getting a point, but it will that is a -13. So you were
wow.
Yeah, it was 19.
Okay. Oh, I just barely stayed within the fringes of it.
Yeah. So Daniel is now at 11 points, and now we will get into the fifth batted ball of the afternoon here.
It's definitely going to be help for him. That's a basic to like a basic win.
All right.
Let's see it going that way. That's the
Was a bit laggy on my end.
All right, let's take another look.
Yeah, I saw it was a line drive to the opposite field. Okay, yeah. So the Adley one was 21. That looked pretty similar. I'm gonna go with like 19.
All right, 19. I actually forget. So I'll have to look. That is 11 degrees.
Points off. Okay. Or
Yeah,
wait, no,
I
not
think
2 points off. Way more than that, actually.
so. Yeah, 8 points off. So that is 2 points. But yeah, I think it's trickier because it was hit over 100 miles per hour, whereas
Yeah.
the Adley one was hit, I think.
On a related note, did you see that Giancarlo Stanton had a 4-degree barrel this week?
I did not.
He hit a 120-mile-per-hour 4-degree barrel.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Which
Yeah,
is
that's
sick, yeah, because the definition of barrel is just anything that produces a league-wide 500 average and 1,500 slugging.
okay. Yeah, no, that's completely fair.
Yeah.
All right, so on to number 6 as we take a look here.
Oh, that is a high drive by Taylor Ward. I'm thinking he's getting sweet spot rated there. Brian Bayo is not. Definitely above 33. I'm thinking like 40, 42 degrees on that Taylor Ward fly ball.
That was 35 degrees.
Okay.
So that is going to
I
be,
was right in that it was outside the sweet spot threshold.
it was, yes. So that is another 2 points, which puts you at, I believe, 15 for
Yeah.
the afternoon.
I gotta get within like 1 to 2 at one of these times.
It would be very fun. All right, so now on to the number 7 pick. All right, here we go.
Lindor against Freed. That's a pop-up. So the other one was 69.
Yeah,
That one I think was a little bit less. I'm gonna go like I'm gonna go like 62.
that was 55. So it is another 2-pointer.
Hmm.
You're staying within the range. Nothing has
I am.
really been too far off.
I am.
So yeah, now on to the final of these. Yeah, onto the final of all of these as I try to pull it up. Yeah. All right. So on to the 8th and
Nice.
final.
More Orioles and Royals. Or Michael Garcia. All right, so that one is probably single digits. I'm thinking like 7 degrees.
It is 6 degrees.
All right, 1 degree off. I will take it.
That is a 4-pointer.
There we go.
So
I would have loved a bullseye, but I'll take 1 degree off.
so in total, that is 21 points on 8 guesses, which is an average of
Less than 30.
yeah, a little less, or was it 21 points? So you got, I think, so it was 19. So that was a 2-pointer there. Let's do the addition here. So first one was a 3-pointer. Second one was a 3-pointer. So that's 6. Then third one was another 3-pointer. That's 9. Then you got a 1-pointer, which was 10. Then I think 3 2-pointers in a row. So that was 16. and then that one was a 4-point. So it was 20 points. Yeah.
Okay.
20 points on 8 guesses. So about 2.5
Yeah.
was the average. So yeah, I think I would say a pretty solid performance. Never really
I'll take it.
never really on the extremes of being wrong. And got
Yours
within
was
one.
19 points off, and Best was 1 point off.
Yes, indeed.
I
So
already
yeah.
I'm very excited for yours next week. It's very different from anything that we've done previously, but I think you'll have fun with it.
Yeah, it should be nice. But yeah, that shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. And if you were listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter, @Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram, @Daniel_Curran. And follow the show Instagram, @Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.